Welcome everybody. Wow, what a morning! This has been like a day full of technical difficulties. From like minutes before the show, everything decided to go awry. We're back on. I hope I ironed out all the glitches. But welcome everybody. How's everything down with you guys, Markus and Keith?
Well, Keith, please start.
Oh, better here than with you, Amos. I got my fancy lights going on. Things are going good here. It's been a hot week, you know. Well, clammy. You sweat a little bit, and yeah, it used to be cooler. How are things with you, Markus?
Here in Germany, we had a very pleasant week what the weather conditions concern. We had a little bit of rain. We have about 20 degrees Celsius right now, which is absolutely bearable. It could not be better, and I know I'm bragging because we are not left out. It may not happen today, not this year, but yeah, it's going to be worse and worse as we see. And coming back to Amos, it is great to see you so full of energy. And
That's what adrenaline does for you.
Yeah, he was a little bit stressed today, and well, I can't. I guess
Well, it's working out.
yes, I guess a lot of people are stressed right now. Also, be it in Canada or be it in parts of America or even in Finland, and we're this is a main part of our show today. We are addressing what's going on and what we can expect, and you might have noticed that I think that the narrative a little bit has changed in the media. When at least when I look here at Germany, and they are not talking about the climate crisis anymore. More and more, they turn to another term. They call it the climate emergency, and yeah, it's getting hotter and hotter, And well, this is one of the things we are going to talk about. We have let's have a look at the card for today. We are talking about Exxon Mobil Exposed. I think this is Keith's part, right?
No,
I've seen it. Amos has seen it too.
All right. Okay. You do this together, and of course, another story is we are have a look back at the 50th anniversary of Julian Assange and the follow up. What happened this week? And this is, in my opinion, quite strange. And I'd like to see what you guys think, and you guys in chat think about it. I think it is kind of mysterious, but we will talk about it. Yeah, let's start with the hottest topic we have today.
Comes the sun to Lululu.
I'm sorry?
Here comes the sun to Lululu.
Yeah, here comes the sun, yeah. And wow, she came. And though we know that this is caused in parts by a natural phenomenon, it doesn't make the fact smaller that we are nearing a more and more drier planet in the future, and
Getting harder to ignore.
Yes, absolutely. And if you look at the card in the background here, it is absolutely fantastic. If you look at the temperatures, in Greece, in Athens, they had 48 degrees Celsius. This is 118.4 Fahrenheit. In Death Valley, they're expecting, I think, 137 Fahrenheit. In Asia, in Iran, 129 Fahrenheit. In Australia, 123 Fahrenheit. It goes on. And if you look at it, parts of Europe are still excluded. This is luckily this is my country also, but we are also experiencing the drought. the ground water levels are falling and sinking and sinking, and it's only a matter of time when the spots which are not red on the card are turned red, and this is one of the future problems, of the not so far future problems we have to face. And let's have a look what happened in the past week. We heard about the little town of Lytton in Canada. I heard before the place completely burned down, I think they also had a couple of people who collapsed in the heat, and then it was the aftermath that it looks like hell, right? We are turning our planet into a hell. And yeah.
Well, last week we had the mayor of a neighboring town on, and he was very emotional. You missed it last week, Marcus, but yeah, the whole town had to evacuate, and those people had to go somewhere, and the town to the north, opened their arms and helped them out. And so that's what that report was about. But yeah, that's really been news, especially in the doom community, because there's I was watching, checking the various things I check, and these the people who think the sky is falling, it's Chicken Little time, and we're all going to fry and all that. Well, they're always looking to places in the world to move to, to try to escape it, like it's possible.
Exactly.
Good luck.
Exactly.
But anyway, so for a long time, the Pacific Northwest has been a place where, has been highly sought after as, oh yeah, that's a place to go to. But with our recent heat dome event, all kind, especially certain doomers in New York are saying that, it's much better to be here, and those people, and there's no point in going to the Pacific Northwest. And the way I see it is, it's all a roll of the dice, and their turn's going to come.
Yes, absolutely. And let's have a look at the next clip, because we get more, we learn more about the heat dome, also what it means.
After a heat wave gripped parts of the United States and Canada for days last week, an international collective of scientists has published a report which says that the extreme heat would have been virtually impossible if it wasn't for the effects of climate change. The death toll in the US state of Oregon alone has topped 100, while the Canadian province of British Columbia saw hundreds more deaths than usual.
People need to realise that heat waves are killers, and they are by far the deadliest extreme event. Heat preparation and preventing death during heat waves need to be a #1 priority for every city authority.
The group of scientists estimated that last week's astonishing temperatures were a 1 in 1,000-year occurrence, but warned that if current greenhouse gas emissions continue, such an event could start happening every 5 to 10 years by the 2040s. The June heatwave was far beyond the norm for the Pacific Northwest, with the authors of the report suggesting two possible explanations. Either that a number of factors contributed to producing a very rare event made worse by climate change, or that climate change has altered the Earth's atmospheric conditions so that such heat waves are more common than previously thought. The new research does not, however, come as a complete surprise. On a global level, climate change has made heat waves more common, more extreme and longer lasting.
Yes, and a matter of fact, what such heat waves is a phenomenon which normally appears every 1 or 2 decades, But, with the climate change, or what we are doing to this planet, it makes it now 125 times more likely to happen again. And this is a big number. And this is a big number.
There's something complicated going on, First of all, the baseline, okay, the global temperature is taken to be like 1.5 meters above the surface of the Earth, averaged over the whole thing. All right, so the average temperature is going up. That's now indisputable. No point in arguing about that. We got better things to do and argue about stupid things like that. But that's only the average, and the dynamic thing that's going on is the extremes, the deviation, the highs and the lows from that baseline are getting more violent. So that the days where you will have extreme heat events will be far more common than they would have been without global warming. So.
Yes. And I just saw that I had the number incorrect. It does not makes it 125 times more likely. It makes it 150 times more likely. This is coming from an article from Nature, and it is absolutely crazy if you read it. The devastating heat wave that struck parts of Canada and the United States late last month would have been extremely unlikely without global warming, researchers have concluded. The chances of temperatures in the Pacific Northwest region coming close to 50 degrees Celsius has increased at least 150-fold since the end of the 19th century, found a rapid analysis conducted in the response to the heat wave. And here's a quote: "This heat wave would have been virtually impossible without the influence of human-caused climate change," says Suki Philip, a climate scientist at the Royal Netherlands Meteorological Institute in De Bilt, and a co-author of the analysis. It was probably still a rare event, but if global warming might exceed 2 degrees, it might occur every 5 to 10 years in the future. Exactly what was said in the clip we saw before. What does this mean for this region, you know?
Well, Marcus, I'll tell you, there was one day, I'll tell you how I survived it. I have a nice German car. It has air conditioning. So I ran errands, and I went to the places I needed to go to, and every place I went to had air conditioning. But the fact is, people in the Pacific Northwest in general, in their homes, they don't have air conditioning. I don't. And, so it's going to be a problem in the future, in places that really didn't expect this. They have to make changes. And one of the, in today's presentation, we're going to encounter a clip I stuck in about something called the wet bulb temperature that people need to know about. So I'll mention that again when we get there. But I had to just drive around and run errands, and it was the only way for me to keep cool.
Well, guys, forget about people. Animals don't have anywhere to hide. They don't have anywhere to go to an air-conditioned cooling center. So basically, that we've seen that in the past, and we're going to continue seeing is mass die-offs of animals that just cannot get used to those high temperatures. And we've seen a mass die-out of clams along the Canadian shores. They just got cooked. And I think we have that next, right?
Yes, please run it.
And here's the thing that basically we have like these occurrences that usually would have, like you mentioned, taken every 1,000 years to happen, now happen at the frequency of 100 years. And if we go over 2% global carbon emission, then it's predicted it would be every 10 years. Those organisms, they can't adjust, they can't bounce back. Where let's say there is a heat event and 20-30% of the population of a particular organism perishes, they would have had like 1,000 years to bounce the population back somewhat before the next one hit. In this case, there's just no time to bounce off. Before it hits them again, they may not get back to their previous populations. So we're seeing mass die off, as was predicted in mass extinction actually happening as we watch.
And the bitter
Yeah, that's the observation, Amos. This is a mass extinction event. You know, the clams themselves may not go extinct, you know, the next, you know, short period of time, but they're representative of what's going on. You've got, you know, all creatures, wherever they are on the earth, evolved to be to fit where they are. And you know, even two clams, say 1,000 miles apart on a coastline, you know, north south 1,000 miles, they may be the same kind of clam, they may look the same, but you know what, the clam further north is not going to be able to take heat the same way the clam from the south is.
Right.
And this is revealing itself that, you know, all kinds of critters, you know, they can't move. They're stuck where they are, and there's no time for the generations to select the ones that can evolve to deal with the heat.
Right, and this is not theoretical; it's actually in practice. And later in the show, we'll talk about how the fossil fuel industry is behaving, and they were exposed. And you want to stick around to see that, because that makes you extremely outraged when you compare what's going on with what they're doing.
Yes, sneaky interview. Yeah, that's good.
And the bitter irony in his, if you saw the clip, is it exactly shows our future. You know, it is what should be different. Okay, maybe we are not getting boiled, we're getting grilled instead. You know, but it doesn't change. And a billion of sea animals killed like this, you know, this is extremely disturbing, you know. And I don't know if you remember, late last month there came news from California, I guess, where it was observed that a lot of wild animals and snakes and stuff were trying to get out of the desert and get into populated places. You know, maybe it was already their instinct that they knew, you know, in quotation marks, what was coming, and that already tried to seek shelter.
Yeah, animals on the move.
Yeah, and that's not the last thing. There will be a lot on the move in the future, you know.
Oh yes, that.
And here's another article coming from Huffington Post, which also describes what we already talked about and what we saw already. And even the scientists were stunned from what they saw there. You know, there is one scientist, he said, as he discovered endless rows of gaping dead mussels along with dead clams, snails, sea stars, barnacles. He said he was stunned, you know. And I cannot, what kind of, how must this have looked, you know? Endless miles. I don't know how much it stretched, you know, to cover 1 billion dead sea animals. It is,
well, I know one thing about it is unfortunately the heat happened at a time of exceptionally low tide. So these animals were exposed for high temperature for longer than they're used to be, because they're used to, you know, they live on the beach, so they do get exposed, but then the sea comes back and covers them back up. Yeah. And so they were just out there too long.
Yeah. And there's another thing. If you go to exactly to this slide, this is lake meat, and it was described, the white bathtub ring around Lake Mead shows the record low water level of Lake Mead as drought continues to worsen on July near Boulder City in Nevada. And look, I mean, Lake Mead, I think he brings energy to California, Arizona, and another state, I guess. I'm not sure. If this goes on and there is nothing coming, there's nothing coming from snow smelting, from meltings, it is not refilled again. And what would be the consequences for the 5th largest economy in California? they are dependent on Lake Mead, on what Lake Mead does for them, right?
Well, the crops are going to fail. The Lake Mead irrigate.
Everything is going to hell, literally.
Yes.
And there's an article in Newsweek. I only grabbed three short lines from it. 90 years after the construction of the Hoover Dam was first approved, its reservoirs are at an all-time low as a result of the drought gripping the western U.S. The water level at Lake Mead fell to 1,071.556 feet above sea level in early June, according to Reuters. At that time, that was a new record low until this month. And from July on July the 6th, the Bureau of Reclamation dropped the following news, that it is only 35% full. This is a little bit over a third.
And we got a little bit of the summer left too. So this is not good.
And what happens when the summer is over? Can we expect any possibility that this get refilled, or that there is coming?
Well, the next clip has something about this.
Okay.
There's a comment.
Yes.
Yeah. I
know.
Okay. You saw it.
You did. I saw it already. Exactly.
Okay.
And my first thing was, who's this funny guy in the video, but then he moved to the bush, and this was a game changer.
Right.
Run the clip. I got goosebumps when I saw this.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Cody's Lab. Last I checked, the channel was almost 2 million subscribers. That's such a huge number, I cannot get my head around it. So to celebrate, I thought I'd do a part 2 to my Chain of Thunder video, in which I set off something that made a loud, thunderous noise on one spot, and another one at another spot set it to go off at the time that the sound of the first one reaches it. So if you're standing on one end, it sounds like one bang. You stand on the other end, it sounds like two. I wanted to scale this up, more thunder, longer chain. There's only one problem. See how crispy these trees are? It has not rained or snowed any significant amount in over a year. So magic boom dust, unfortunately, is a nope. I'm pretty sure my boom dust wouldn't start a fire. I think I could control it in such a way that it wouldn't, but I cannot absolutely guarantee that. There's going to be a fire. It's going to be a terrible fire season, and I don't want to be responsible for one of them. So
yeah,
it's wow. When this start to happen, and I can guarantee you this is going to happen. If you look at, there is no drop of water to be found anywhere.
Yeah, everything's crazy.
Holy fucking shit. And well, the other thing is,
Markus,
please.
we had a comment. Cirrus 1976 was saying that it's 84 here. I'm not sure. I don't know where he is. Maybe he can type in and tell us. He says it's 84 degrees here. It should be 100. Very weird. And what you were just saying, I repeat, I brought that up to amplify what you're saying, because you're getting at the point where there's this circular jet stream around the North Pole, and it's failing. So what happens is we get these wild swings.
Yes.
And that'll actually be covered in another short video we have. I have a lot of short videos, but they're all short. They're all surgical. So,
Very good. Very good.
What's interesting, it's the same thing is happening with the circulation of the water in the ocean. It's becoming more erratic, and all the existing long repeating patterns are kind of falling apart, and that has significance on everything from carbon, ocean acidity and temperature, and eventually atmosphere. So,
Yeah, the circulation patterns are changing, slowing down.
Yeah. And if we look, I already mentioned it, there's a report coming from Backpacker. As of Friday morning, the National Weather Service predicts the Death Valley's Furnace Creek Visitor Center will hit a high of 130 degrees Fahrenheit on Sunday, July 11 and Monday, July 12th.
Can you even survive it? At what point what's 130? I think it's at the point where proteins are starting to break, right? The 40, 45 degrees.
Yeah. It could be. I'm not an expert in this, and I don't want to test it, to be honest, but it is unbelievable. It is absolutely unbelievable. And this brings me, and we talked about what might this bring to the economies. What might this bring to California, for example? If you're running out of water, and if this goes on with all the fires, which are coming up, and this means we have another report here. I put it in quickly. It is coming from the United Nations, and it says the number of people leaving their homes due to persecution, conflict, violence, and human rights violation has increased to 82.4 million. Now, please add those to this figure who are fleeing because of the climate emergency, how it is called today. Can you imagine how many that would be? Because it is not only what's going on right now in this absolute dramatic situation in Canada and part of West America. We got absolutely fantastic figures from Finland. They got tropical nights in Finland. And this is absolutely absurd. Greece, Athens, these were the favorite holiday places for many people here in Europe. They're going in their summer vacations to Spain, to Greece, and stuff.
Siberia.
Yeah. As long as it exists, as you don't, drown in the mud, because Syria is also in a devastating state. Where to go? And there is not much places left, in my opinion. And I can guarantee you that those places who can offer a little bit of cool shade and a little bit of ice are not our places. They're owned by someone else. Yeah.
Well, that gets into the millions that are going to be moving around the world in the next few years, or starting to move in the next few years, or trying to move and being prevented from moving, more likely. It's a huge problem that's only just beginning to start.
Absolutely. And it makes me kind of angry and absolutely frustrated, when I hear our politicians fantasize about that in 2030, we are starting, to get things regulated, and that we're doing this and that. And if you look what's going on in reality, you can only get angry or desperate.
Yeah. I saw a video not so long ago, and it was a climate scientist, and he was trying to make the point that the net zero by 2050 is really doing, in his opinion, more harm than good, because it's propping up a false expectation. For one, it's an unrealistic goal, and that he thinks our time should be better adapting to our situation, and that his feeling is that talk about net zero is it's a fantasy, and it's just a way of extending denial. So his point of view is interesting. It's a complicated thing.
Yeah. It's Well,
But that also
you see,
gives ammunition to those who say, okay, we shouldn't really do anything about it because it's too late anyway. That's a good excuse not to act.
yes, and this is, I think, those cynical voices who say, you know, who in the first place deny the climate change and the following emergency or catastrophe, and saying, okay, and then saying, okay, we cannot do anything about it, you know, and we gotta see that our economies run because we are losing our status and stuff in the world, and we cannot sell enough goods. It's we are a crazy species, guys.
Oh yeah, capitalism, money. You know,
Yeah.
we're driven by it.
Yeah, the next
You know, it does our
slide.
thinking for us.
The next slide shows it exactly what's going on. Pull on the next one. Yeah. This is exactly what's going on. And I think you will come to Exxon a little bit later, and I can imagine what you want to talk about. Yeah, it is. I think it brings it to the point. In case of emergency, break filibuster.
Yeah, like they're waiting for something else to happen.
Yeah, and there is no help to be expected. You know, I don't follow her or the squad anymore, or any progressives. Maybe you can answer me this. Is there anything apart from tweets which they are bringing on, you know, to do something against it? I mean, the Green New Deal. You know, what's going on, guys? Inform me, Amos.
The media is saying it's dead.
Okay.
But that might be more wishful thinking on their part than the reality, because we're not done. We cannot allow that to happen.
But is there anything on the way? Is there any fight? Is there anything to see?
I'm sure it's gonna be one of the biggest fights, because aside from saving our democracy, which is also an extreme emergency. Yeah. This is up there. So,
and we are starting to fight when we're already laying on our back, right?
Yeah, we have all these losing fights.
Sounds a plan. Yeah. All right. That's from my part, and we'll stick to the topic. And I think does it get even worse, Keith Amos? Tell me.
Oh yes, we have this kind of as like we are going to do it, but we've all three of us doing it together. We can like skip slide 20 and go right to 21 because it's all part of the same story.
Yeah, I know.
Much, but we haven't touched the issue of global warming or global climate change or global crisis, and now I think we all agree it should be called a global emergency. Of course, it's a crisis, but in addition to crisis, it's an emergency because it needs immediate action, and that is what's behind the name change. It's changing the framing on this. I believe that the
Extinction Rebellion kind of describes it as the emergency, and they started that, and you know but in America the term really has not got here yet.
Yeah, and there in parts, I think in the UK, for example, they're trying to label them more and more as domestic terrorists with their actions. You know, this is also with the retaliations, you know, they're coming, and we know this.
Yeah. So regarding the Arctic Circle, it's heating 3 times, and the slide got cut over here at the top, but it says Arctic Circuit warming 3 times more rapidly than the rest of the planet. This is primarily where the action is right now. And ice disappearing is more rapidly than they predicted till now. So we haven't really touched this big issue in about a year, and since then the news have only gotten worse. You wanna talk about this video clip?
Yes, this video clip I took from a very, very long, like almost 2 hour long rant that Roger Hallam gave on a park bench a couple months ago, and he just posted it this last week on his own website. Very small number of people have seen it, and I picked this particular clip out because he's talking about the speed at which the Arctic ice is disappearing, and he's going to say when it's going to be gone, and he's going to give 3 references to where he's getting his facts. I looked up 2 of them, and I couldn't understand the spelling of the person in the middle, so I couldn't find him. But anyway, I put the 2 links on. We can look at him or not. Point is, I put him in there because there's a lot of talk about the science. None of us dispute the science, but yeah, I mean, what is the truth and what's really going on? So I basically when Roger talks, he's preaching to the choir, and he knows that. We actually talked very briefly once, and but anyway, that's what's going on. So I just wanted to emphasize that again, even though we really don't have to. We're preaching to the choir that the science is real. This is not, there's no, we're really dinosaurs if we even talk about if this is happening or not. It's happening, and so we got to deal with it, and that's what we're talking about on our show today, right? We got to deal with it. That's the message. So anyway,
let's watch what he says.
Okay, so here we go. This is Overland 2012, Vavris, I think, 2012, and Gorino 2020 et al. So they all said this, 2035 or before. You can go and look it up on the internet. It takes about 30 seconds to look it up, get your ruler out. 2030, 2035, we get 0 ice in the Arctic.
Yeah, that's it. 0 ice in the Arctic by 2035, if not sooner.
Yeah, and if that happens, Greenland is going to melt. That alone will add 7.5 meters or 25 feet of water to the oceans, which is the equivalent of a 3-story building. Can you imagine that? A 3-story building of water filling the
Well, can you imagine the Antarctic ice sheet being lifted by that 3-story building and adding another 3-story building on top of it? Because at times in the archaeological record, though, that's a geological record, because archaeology has to do more with human history. But in the global history of the Earth, when it's been this warm before, there has been as much as 20 meters of sea level rise. So that kind of rise can't happen overnight, but it can happen fast enough to really mess us up.
But guys, you got to also see the opportunities in this. Once Greenland is ice free, you can dig out all of the what's in the ground, all the important stuff we need, to keep our system running, and I think Donald Trump was already wise enough to make first approaches, to buy Greenland,
Right. At least he didn't hide it. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the thinking of those guys we saw in the cartoon, in the corner in the right.
Yeah. And here are some more examples of what they're expecting in the next 20 to 30 years, and that's Vietnam. 90% of Vietnam, for example, will be underwater at least once a year. Can you imagine a whole country being underwater pretty much? And Jakarta will be fully flooded and will need to move to another place.
Also, a big opportunity to become the new Venice, right?
Yes, yeah. Tourism.
I'm sorry for being sarcastic, but at least we're helpless.
Yeah. And they're expecting just from the southeast, if all these predictions happen, that there's going to be 200 to 300 million refugees that will just need to move or perish. So just imagine what that would look like. We have had 80 million, like we discussed earlier, 80 million refugees so far from all the upheavals in the world at this point. Can you imagine 200 to 300 million adding to that? I can't.
Gonna be
Guys,
horrible.
honestly, I'm glad that I passed my 50s.
Yeah,
Oh.
I think we probably all do, because the next generation is not going to be very happy.
No.
And the problem with what's going on is basically that this is a cycle. It's not just that we can just stop what we're doing and slow it down and it will all regulate, because we're putting into motion something that has a positive feedback. In other words, it drives itself. So
Yeah.
we release CO2, Earth gets hotter, the Arctic Sea or the ice melts, and where it's highly reflective as ice, as water, it absorbs more sunlight. So it by itself adds to the warming. In addition to that, there is a thawing of the tundra, which captured CO2. So all the CO2 and methane, methane, is getting released into the atmosphere, and the heat stressed forest is adding, the bleaching of the oceans and this acidification that's caused by the warming is releasing even more greenhouse gases, and all of this is warming the oceans and releasing more CO2 and methane. So it's like a cycle. You can't. It's not something that you could easily just roll back. At some
Yeah,
point, it takes a life of its own.
Amos, bring back that last slide. I want to make a few comments about it there.
Yes.
Yeah, and yes, it is a cycle, but the important thing to understand is there's this concept called a tipping point, and once you reach the tipping point,
Yeah.
you can't go back to where you were. So you may do things to mitigate the damage. You may stop CO2 emissions, like that can happen. It's not going to happen, but say you did these impossible things. That doesn't mean we go back to where we were, because these tipping points aggravate what we're doing to the environment. They amplify the effects. Some people kind of go off the deep end with the cycle and the feedback, and then they take it too far and say that we're going to be like Venus, and we're going to have like lakes of molten lead and stuff like that. Those people are kind of crazy and small in number, but that people do this. They take things to the extreme, but it's really important to understand the concept of a tipping point of making a change where you can't go back from it. Like if the Amazon is all cut down, the Amazon can't come back because the rain cycle, the hydrological cycle that it depends on, has been destroyed.
Yeah.
And there are other examples like that. So yeah. And one thing that we're going to face is the methane. So I see this. You put a slide in about the carbon that's dissolved in all the ice that's going to melt. The carbon dioxide, because that's something to think about. But in the far north, we have methane in the form of hydrates in the ocean, and also in the peat and just the undigested, unrotted biological refuse that's built up on the tundra plains and in the permafrost specifically, where it once it starts melting, the bacteria wake up, they start decomposing, and they start releasing the methane. And we're going to hit a slide soon where when it comes up, I'll explain a little more.
Okay.
But, sorry, go ahead.
Well, here's one that tells you that 3,000 billion tons of carbon are going to be released from melting ice, which is what's the concern, and that means twice the carbon in vegetation and in the atmosphere now. So if you think that it's an adjustment, obviously it's not something that can be like tweaked. It's huge. So if we get to that spot where we are already at that spot, it's we have to put on all the brakes now. There's no point for any delays because we're already behind the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to mention that?
Yeah, I put this slide in. This is from a video I actually made. It's a mashup, and it's like 17 minutes long. We're not watching the whole thing. The part we're only watching is about a minute long, and it's bringing up, some people call it the methane bomb, because if all this methane comes out at once, we are toast. We're gone. I mean, that's it. But the world's really a big place. The world's also round. The stuff at the top will last longer than the stuff at, say, a lower latitude, and it can't come out at once. So really, we don't know what's going on, is the truth of the matter, and it's a huge unknown thing. But there's the possibility of methane making things horribly bad in the very near future is something to think about. And I was kind of basing a story I was writing on this concept. Yeah.
So yeah, and this is what I'm afraid of. What's going to happen in Siberia, right? When the permafrost disappears, what's going on? There is megatons of methane in the ground there.
Yeah, and methane is also what we call a natural gas, where our friendly name. That's the same thing, and it's also what we fart. So
we don't have to worry about cows and steaks anymore. That's bullshit.
Oh, Amos, we haven't mentioned how much more dangerous methane is per volume than CO2.
Yeah, it's 84%, 84% more. It's like, I think the current belief it's 5 times more affects the atmosphere, or blocks absorption, but five times more than carbon.
Yeah. The number varies because methane will break down after about a century. So if you released a kilogram of methane into the air, a century later, I think only half of it, or a bit less than half of it, will still be in the air. So if you look at 100-year span of methane, then it's equivalent to 28 times the greenhouse warming effect of CO2. Whereas when it's first released, it's 85 times.
Yeah, it decays faster.
Another gas
it's worse.
That's even worse, which nitrogen oxide.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
And just let me mention, since we're on this topic, because there's the cow story, because Republicans were making fun of progressives that were talking about having to reduce the industrial farm industry, and that is true. The industrial farms do add methane. However, the initial belief that of the impact of these agricultural release of methane is far lesser than they initially thought. They caught an error. We made a segment about it like a couple of years ago, I believe. There was a paper that was published, and they distinctly identified that there was a mistake in identifying the footprint of, or idea of, where this methane came from, and it's actually methane that was released by the fossil fuel industry while they were fracking natural gas. So it turns out that is far more. It's like 20 times more than the what's released from agriculture. So that is really the true culprit. It hasn't received the proper attention, but but that is unfortunately the case. You want me to roll this clip?
Yeah.
Yeah, this clip specifically will tell us how much methane there is in the Arctic.
Observed in form of methane in this southern Arctic shelf is approximately from hundreds to thousands of gigatons. And of course, it's only 1% of that amount is required to double the atmospheric burden of methane. But to destabilize 1% of this carbon pool, I think it's not much effort needed, considering that the state of permafrost and the amount of methane currently involved.
And one more remark from Dr. Shakova.
The worst thing might happen. Shortly speaking, we do not like what we see there. Absolutely do not like.
Well, here's a sobering thought. Methane levels in the atmosphere surged last year, despite the pandemic. Now, NOAA says it was the biggest annual jump since record-keeping started back in the early 1980s. Scientists found that rise pretty surprising and disturbing.
Yep.
Yeah. Like I said, it's part of a much longer tape. You know, I put it together, so obviously I'm biased and think it's a great tape. We should just watch it. But no, I'm kidding there. We have a lot of stuff to cover.
And I wanted to address some of those. If you're in an argument with a conservative and they come up with those bullshit arguments that they've been using, I want you to be able to be armed with counter responses. So one of the things is that they say, well, the Earth has gone through such climate changes in the past. This is natural. It's not a big issue. Well, it has never in the history of Earth gotten to that in terms of the unprecedented rate of warming. So if something was warming, it was over thousands of years. Animals and plants had some chance of moving or adjusting to it. In this current situation, we're in dipshit. So this is not anything like compared to a natural process of cycling through climate extremes as has happened in the past. And when they have happened, that has made major changes on everything. Somehow life survived, but it definitely affected some creatures that died off and others took their place. So this is not much of a consolation, and we know this one is being highly correlated to our release of these greenhouse gases. This has been proven over and over. There's like almost a one-to-one response, and so there's no doubt that we're driving this. Another thing they say is so another thing is that this atmospheric conditions that are being created have not happened in the last 30 million years. So that's way above what human history has been. If no action is taken, let's say we let it do business as usual, we'll reach conditions that have not been seen on Earth 100 million years. So this is not something to look forward to. And
I did this to you. I threw this in there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I saw these two Trumpers in the deck. You know, these two slides in the deck of this Mr. Two Terms talking sense, and I go, well, you know, you can't have them saying things like they know what's going on. So this was obviously one that came to his senses, and so I added another slide to carry on to show that this guy's, you know, he's had an epiphany, and so he now he's going to use his redneck wisdom to help us. So that's why I say, you know, it's time to fish or cut bait. We got to do something about this problem here.
Yeah.
So you learned a little bit about geoengineering, not to say that's right or wrong. That's another issue.
Yeah,
but to say, the fact is, CO2 by 1 part per million takes 8 billion tons of CO2 to be carbon to be sequestered.
Yeah,
it's a lot of carbon.
And if you look at the first slide, if even if what's happening today is not caused by us, by humans, it doesn't change the fact what's going on, and that we have to do something about it, right? It doesn't change the fact that we are getting boiled like frogs in the pot if we don't do anything.
But the delay game goes on because power
of
likes
course,
things the way they are.
Of course. And this is why I can only repeat myself. I say this, I don't know for how long right now. An effective fight against the disastrous climate catastrophe cannot be done with capitalism. It can only happen without capitalism.
Oh, totally agree. Oh, yes.
That's the point of it.
It's making money make the decisions, and people, it takes away human agency.
Yes,
and
it takes away rationality.
Yes,
and that's even worse.
Yeah. And there's another thing you should know, and that is, like, we're still not seeing the worst of it because we have that momentary tempering of this warming by the fact that when you melt ice, it actually takes energy from the surroundings, so it cools you down temporarily. It cools you down when you melt the ice, but that is not repeatable. You go through the ice and that is it. And then the real rate is discovered, the real heat rate. So we're not seeing the worst of it.
In that video we played about where Roger Helm was talking, he got into that, and that never mind. There's just so much to talk about.
I know.
And you wanted to mention the wet bulb.
Yes, that's another reason I want to talk about this slide. Is this is kind of a coming to a future near you cartoon that we're going to look at.
The National Weather Service declared a wet bulb alert for several states in the American South and Midwest. A wet bulb emergency occurs when the air is so hot and humid that people are unable to cool their bodies with perspiration. This is measured with a thermometer wrapped in wet cloth. Exposure to these conditions can result in death in a matter of hours. For 3 days, people sheltered anxiously in air-conditioned homes and public buildings, awaiting the passing of the lethal heat wave. They emerged from their air-conditioned shelters into a new reality. The ground was littered with dead birds. Dead leaves fell from lifeless trees. There was no denying anymore. The Earth's climate was rapidly changing, with lethal consequences for humans and other living creatures. When there was ice at the North Pole, the difference between cold Arctic air and warmer air in the mid-latitudes created a robust jet stream. But when the polar ice melted, the blue ocean underneath absorbed more heat and became warmer. The jet stream lost energy and became weaker, loopier, and more disorganized. Heat waves became hotter and lasted longer, worsening droughts, crops failed, famines increased. Slower, more powerful tropical storms and hurricanes caused catastrophic flooding. Worst of all, a rapidly warming Arctic Ocean unleashed a sleeping giant. Methane hydrates, frozen for eons, erupted into the atmosphere, accelerating global temperatures beyond what human life could endure in such a
Yes, and that tape with Roger Helm that I was referring to earlier made the point in that segment shortly after the part we watched. He makes the point where once the ice is gone, it stays gone. All the predictions of the polar ice leaving the Arctic show that it doesn't come back next year. The first year it's gone, and that's a tipping point.
Yeah. And I like the clip, because it has in under a minute, everything we were just talking about, and yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good clip. Yeah, the wet bulb temperature is 35 degrees C, or it's 92 degrees Fahrenheit. And what it means is at those temperatures, if you have 100% humidity, within a few hours, you're dead, because your body cannot survive. You can't cool down because the humidity air is so hot that your perspiration can't cool you down. So it can be warmer and you can have less humidity, and then the wet bulb temperature moves up a bit, right? So if you've got 80% humidity, maybe it's got to be like 100 degrees. I don't know. There's a chart that gives you all the answers. But throughout human history, the Earth really doesn't ever, reach wet bulb temperatures anywhere. But we're always, there are places in the world that have always been just on the hairy edge, just below it. And so the first place that it's likely to happen, where there would be large die-offs, is Southeast Asia and along the coast of China. But the way things are, with the unpredictability, the unknown contribution that methane could contribute, we got to do something. One thing Extinction Rebellion does is they make a point where if you were on an airplane, if you're going to take an airplane flight, and you were told that this plane flight has a 15% chance of crashing, and and an 85% chance of getting you where you want to go just fine, would you get on the plane? Of course you wouldn't. 15%? You're going to risk your life for 15%? Well, in terms of the climate, the global heating crisis, that's exactly what's going on. This is, why are progressives talking about this? Because it's change. We got to change what we're doing. We have people who like things the way they are, who benefit from the current system, and they will prevent change as much as they can. And in the slide that we're going to watch, I put in this clip because there's a climate scientist making a very good point that we also have to, pay attention to. And one point in that is that whatever we've been doing to try to avert this situation has not been enough, and we need to step things up and maybe change some tactics. I'm not saying how. That's for everybody to figure out together. So
we'd be in a much better place, that's for sure. In fact, things have gone in the opposite direction in that last 30 years, and the size of the problem is roughly double what it was in the late 80s. We've got the increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is approximately twice what it was in the late 1980s now. So we've gone absolutely in the wrong direction, and we are now in a pretty, really urgent situation. It's still physically possible if the global economy can be moved to renewable energy quickly enough and at a level that really cuts into greenhouse gas emissions, then it's all still possible, and we can save the West Antarctic ice sheet and all the rest of it. But we really need to get on with it and make some significant progress in the next few years.
Okay, we are literally all in this together, so
we certainly are.
James, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me on your Friday evening.
Okay, well, very nice to talk to you.
Got a better night than
Another issue is the nitrogen. We spoke about methane, worse than carbon. Well, nitrogen is even worse. Nitrogen in the atmosphere is 265 times the effects of
nitrogen oxide.
Nitrogen oxide, that's the format that it appears when it's released into the atmosphere. It's also known as laughing gas. Known as laughing gas. This is what's going out into the atmosphere. And we are using nitrogen in all commercial farming. So this is SOS. We have to stop using practices and start doing things in a non-monoculture way, in a way that allows not using pesticides, not using nitrogen using natural processes that have worked for forever. We need the bees, as pollinators, we need the insects, and when you look at it, basically, the truth is it's all about the soil. The soil is one of the major components in this story, and it's
Amos, I
yes,
just wanted to add one thing about that last slide you showed.
yeah.
When I looked, I saw that, and I was curious about what other gases might be really bad, and I found out that the winner of the gases for global heating is sulfur hexafluoride, which is like they actually use this stuff to inflate tennis balls with. And the gas that's in one tennis ball is equivalent to the CO2 a car puts out in 5 years.
No way.
Yes, it's like 13,000 times the CO2 equivalent or something. So maybe you don't get to 5 years there or whatever, but it's 13,000 times instead of like the 265.
I did
Just
not know
amazing.
that. I did not know that.
They
Wow.
should kill all professional tennis players.
Well,
Oh,
they're
yeah,
not. They're
yeah.
not to blame.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding you. I'm pretty sure they're not aware. But holy fuck!
Yeah, it better not be going on. They better have stopped it.
I have a family member who is a keen tennis player. I can't wait to tell him.
Kill him, Amos. Kill him.
No. But basically, the true hero in the story is the soil, and we're 15% of the release of these greenhouse gases are improper handling of the soil in commercial agriculture and land management, deforestation, over-tilling, commercial fertilization, monoculture, and insecticide use. They're all causing the grounds to die. It is a living organism. It's not an exaggeration when they say that it is a living organism. It is literally something alive. It has bacteria, and I've been studying that in regards to my own little growing of vegetables and stuff in my yard. Permaculture is real. These insects are disposing from like dead plants. They break it down so that bacteria and fungus can get at them. Those in turn bring nutrients to the roots of plants and feed off sugars that the roots of plants provide to them in order to create this culture. It is a whole system. It's a whole system, and if you break that system, you end up with dry, infertile soil that erodes and gets swept into the oceans, and that's what has been going on en masse around the world, and this is also something very, very serious. And
it's called food industry, Amos.
Well, it is yes, it's called food industry, and the point is that it needs to be somehow curtailed to start growing things responsibly, and we're far from
yes
that, but we have to start talking about this with our families, with our friends, and start putting the spotlight on this.
Yeah, this is a very interesting slide to me, because a few years ago, I realized I didn't know what soil was. I didn't know what dirt was, and like, what's it made out of? And so I got into it myself, and it's fascinating. You have to have a biological system, an ecosystem that is going to build up a surplus of mostly digested organic material that's mixed into a matrix of minerals and the living organisms that you're talking about. And that, gardeners, quickly, if you do any gardening, you're going to get into this, and the agriculture that modern agriculture, we till, and when we till, we expose oxygen to the soil where it degrades. So we only have 60 years left by current agricultural practices are causing the loss of 30 soccer fields every second, are being lost of arable land. And, in places like where I live, the climate is such that we can actually build soil pretty quickly. Like in my garden, I can till stuff in and it decomposes, and it rains enough that stuff grows right away. You could plow it back in. And so in our immediate area, soil degradation, through natural farming is not really as much of an issue. But in other places, it takes like 1,000 years to build up 1/3 of an inch of it through natural processes. And what's happened is when the Midwest of the United States was settled, you had farmers coming in, and they plowed up the prairies, started tilling, and they basically, they had like several thousand years worth of natural buildup. And it's like everything else, the oil we've taken out of the ground that took forever to build up is just being mined and depleted. And I don't think most people really understand that our agriculture, the way it is, it's actually set up to be an extractive process like mining, and that it's not sustainable. And that's why people are always going on about permaculture and soil and stuff, because taking care of this and doing responsible agriculture, our kind of our lives kind of depend on it.
And I put this slide in because there's always this debate, and people on the right say, well, why should the U.S. do it when China is not doing? Well, the U.S. is 4% of the world population. Its pollution is 15%. So we have some culpability in this, and we have to address it. And yeah, China, we have to make China do it too, but this is not an excuse for the U.S. not to do it. And there's people who would want us to go that route, and that's, I'm talking about the industry. We'll get to that in a minute.
That's another delay tactic.
So basically, in order to fix our problem, we had to remove 40 billion tons of emission every year from now on until net zero, and that's a lot.
Yeah.
This is the Republicans covering their eyes and saying, "There, now it doesn't exist. Wow, it really works." And that's funny because the same opposite is being drawn in conservative media, and this is how they see it.
But the cartoonists should have also at the Democrats, because they are not serious in this game as well,
Right. Well, because
otherwise they would have done
correct
politics against it.
There are core bunch of people who are the culprit in that, and we will get to that in the section we're going into. But this is how Republicans they look at the global climate change, and they think that it's a puff of air. Well, in this case, it's the capital, but I'm making a wider point here.
They see what they want to see.
Yeah.
And here's what we promised you an expose about the fossil fuel industry. Greenpeace has set up a lobbyist for the Exxon Mobil Corporation, and he got him to think that he was recruiting him for a position, but instead they were recording it, and he has exposed things that we've been thinking and saying here, but that hasn't yet we haven't had the proof. We haven't heard it from the horse's mouth, and this is the horse's mouth.
And Joe Manchin is mentioned.
Go with the first one.
Hi, Good to see you.
How are you?
Moments later, Mr. McCoy will become one of the first ever executives to claim that ExxonMobil has aggressively fought climate science using front organizations to maximize shareholder profit.
Did we aggressively fight against some of the science? Yes. Did we join some of these shadow groups to work against some of the early efforts? Yes, that's true. But there's nothing illegal about that. You know, we were looking out for our investments. We were looking out for our shareholders.
In response, Exxon said, "We've supported climate science for decades," and accused Greenpeace of waging a multi-decade campaign against them and the industry. Keith McCoy thinks he's being headhunted for a new job. In fact, of course, he's being covertly filmed.
Unbelievable to hear it said straight, with no pretense.
Congressmen are fish. Exxon is the fisherman.
When you have an opportunity to talk to a member of Congress, you know, you know, I liken it to fishing, right? You know, you have bait, you throw that bait out, you know, it's all these opportunities that you use, and to use the fishing analogy again, just to kind of reel them in, because they're a captive audience. They know they need you and I need them.
Senators pressed to do Exxon's bidding behind closed doors.
You want to be able to go to the chief, and so that the chief knows you, that you can go to the chief and say, look, we've got this issue. We need Congressman so-and-so to be able to either introduce this bill. We need him to make a floor statement. We need him to send a letter. You name it. We've asked for everything.
So who are the fish?
I'm Joe Manchin. I approve this ad because
The biggest catch, according to Mr. Coy, it's the conservative Democrat Senator Joe Manchin, who famously shot President Obama's cap-and-trade climate bill.
And I'll take dead aim at the cap-and-trade bill.
Joe Manchin, I talk to his office every week. He is the kingmaker, and he's not shy about sort of staking his claim early and completely changing the debate.
Legal declarations show that Senator Manchin has received tens of thousands of dollars from ExxonMobil and its trade associations. Keith McCoy names 10 other senators as crucial to ExxonMobil. Senators Mark Kelly, Chris Coons, Shelley Moore Capito, Kirsten Sinema, John Tester, Maggie Hassan, John Barrasso, Steve Daines, John Cornyn, and Marco Rubio. All bar Kelly and Hassan have taken money from Exxon totaling $117,000. We gave all these senators a chance to respond. None did so. Exxon insists our lobbying efforts are fully compliant with all laws and are publicly disclosed on a quarterly basis. Nonetheless, a degree of secrecy appears to be key. The last thing Exxon seems to want is open accountability, facing Congress in public.
We don't want it to be us to have these conversations, especially in a hearing. It's getting our associations to step in and have those conversations and answer those tough questions and be the for lack of a better term, the whipping boy for some of these members of Congress.
So he says they hide behind trade bodies to avoid public scrutiny on the Hill.
Our CEO was invited to a hearing from a member of Congress who we know is just going to rip him to shreds when he goes there. The main thing that they're looking at is just to get ExxonMobil in front of a congressional hearing so they can rip us apart.
Big oil, big power, big pressure. The route from the K Street lobbyist offices to Capitol Hill is very well trodden. From the street to the Hill, we can now reveal the current ExxonMobil battleground and strategy.
It's big, yes. It's bold, yes. And we can get it done.
Just last week, as America continues to suffer heat waves described as apocalyptic and linked to the current climate crisis, President Biden fought to get Congress to pass his $2 trillion showpiece law, linking jobs and infrastructure to massive spending to combat climate change. On Capitol Hill, though, Exxon was also fighting to strip out spending on climate. Forget that, it lobbied. Stick to roads and bridges.
So that's a completely different conversation. When you start to stick to roads and bridges, and instead of a $2 trillion bill, it's an $800 billion bill. If you lower that threshold, you stick to highways and bridges, then a lot of the negative stuff starts to come out. Why would you put in something on emissions reductions on climate change to oil refineries in a highway bill? So, and people say, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So then you get to the germaneness and say that shouldn't be in this bill.
Sure enough, last week Biden's behemoth bill evaporated. A new law may be agreed, but major green initiatives are gone. Coincidence? Or the big oil effect? Nothing illegal, just oiling the wheels of power.
That reveals a whole playbook of how they're acting, and it's not surprising to us, I think, but it is so amazing to hear this so cynically put in words by a lobbyist, and you know, people like that, in my opinion, should be trialed and executed, because they're the reason we're having this issue.
They are climate terrorists.
Absolutely.
I could not be a politician. You know, I did the little math calculation watching this, and like my soul, you know, this soul here, it's worth more than $10,000. I'm sorry. You know, a goddamn oil company has billions of dollars, and they buy our politicians for $10,000 a piece and ruin our, basically, you know, sell us down the river.
Well, some of it you don't see. Some of that money you don't see because it's funneled through PACs and other like groups of supposedly independent that are running ads.
You know, do you know what I would do, you know, and get even more money out of it? I would make it public. You know, social media. Look, these motherfuckers contacted me, you know, they want to buy me. They offered me this amount, you know.
Right, but
can
you
you
never
top
get
this?
offers like that by people who are against, who would do that. Like, you can't imagine them offering AOC or someone like that to buy them off.
Alexandria Ocasio? Come on.
No, I don't think they would go with that. Anyway, here's the next one, talking about forever chemicals, which are the chemicals, like if you've watched the movie Dark Waters, those Teflon production materials that got into the water and like literally poisoned an entire region. Here it goes.
Last month, in a European capital, unearthed, Greenpeace UK's investigations unit is making the final preparations, wiring up with covert recording devices. On K Street, Washington, D.C., home of America's most powerful lobbyists, Keith McCoy, a key representative of the biggest oil company in America, is waiting for the call. The timing's vital. What may be America's greatest chance to combat the climate crisis is going through Congress right now. The video connection is set up. It's time to go to work.
Hi, good to see you.
How are you?
Moments later, Mr. McCoy will become one of the first ever executives to claim that ExxonMobil has aggressively fought climate science using front organizations to maximize shareholder profit.
Did we aggressively fight against the audience? They know they need you and I need them. So to be able to introduce
Cap and Trade Climate, Kirsten Sinema, John Tester, Maggie Hassan, John Barrasso.
It was cued wrong here. Let's see the one about delay tactics.
The senators as crucial to ExxonMobil. Senators Mark Kelly, Chris Coons, Shelley Moore Capito, Kirsten Sinema, John Tester, Maggie Hassan,
Not sure why this
John
is out of
Barras.
sequence. Some of the time stamps may have changed.
What did you
The
say?
senators as crucial to Exxon Mobil. Senators
Something with the
Mark Kelly.
timestamps changed. It was supposed to be different segments in there. I think we'll have to bring it another time. But basically, what he said in the Forever Chemicals is he admitted that Exxon Mobil was actually producing these chemicals. They're highly toxic and highly they don't disintegrate. Forever, that's why they're called forever chemicals, and they're causing tremendous harm, and nobody knows that they're producing that. He said if they came out that they produce these things, the game would be over and they'd get under a lot of fire. Well, it's out now. Let's see what happens. I think this guy is probably not gonna be employed much longer. The Exxon Mobil CEO has kind of distanced himself and said he was shocked to watch this and such. But we all know what the truth of it is. This guy's telling it as it is.
Yes, it was very important for them, to emphasize that everything they were doing is legal, and there was nothing illegal done.
Yeah, of course,
and
it's
nothing
legal,
illegal will ever be done, and bullshit,
Yeah, it's legal, but it's completely.
Who makes the rules? That's the question, That who makes the rules that this might be legal?
And he's also laid out the whole delay tactic, how they had they come up with like a supposedly independent PAC. They pretend that they're supporting the environment and they're meeting with the congressmen and so forth, and then they're pushing for a study to be conducted to better understand and respond to the issues. And then that takes the heat off it. It goes into the back end. It further delays the whole process, and that's exactly what they want. And these supposed organizations, even the industry itself, ExxonMobil, they claimed, and we touched on this when we were talking about the carbon tax. We said that was kind of surprising that they were behind it, and we had some theories. He actually exposed what we said back like a couple of weeks ago, and said that it was a PR move. This is all like just to do it in the front end. While they don't believe that it's ever going to happen, they have enough brakes and levers to stop it from happening, so they're pretending they're all for it to put on a positive face. And he actually says that word for word in this interview. So
I mean, a couple of weeks ago when this came up and I saw the brands, you saw my reaction. This could not be true.
Yeah.
Best government money can buy.
Yep. Yes, we saw this. Yeah, Cinema, Rubio, Manchin. To name the most prominent.
Yeah,
they're all in it.
Well, doesn't this slide say 11? I only saw 10 slides on I counted them when they were up on the video. But if you add Joe Manchin, you're right. That's where they get the 11.
And here's the Congress. The congressman says, "I solemnly swear that I will protect and defend the Constitution of the United States." The lobbyist says, "And I solemnly swear that I will not give him any more money if he doesn't." So.
Yes, and I remember in this context, there is an old video on YouTube, where it shows Ronald Reagan at his time, being president, you're getting orders from a little guy, who turned out to be one of the representatives of General Electric. They already got him in the pocket.
Yeah.
What do we got there?
This is something I just made for fun. It's you got to have a little humor with the end of the world. So I just did it. Just kind of fun. That's
okay.
I am the eye in the sky, looking at you. I can read your mind. I am the maker of rules, dealing with fools. I can cheat you blind, and I don't need to see anymore to know that I can read your mind. I can read your mind. I can read your mind. I can read your mind.
Well, I don't think that is correct. This is a serious show, and this you put it into a satire show.
Yeah, it's like
It's great. I love it. Yeah. Let's come to our next topic. It is Julian Assange. As we know, last Saturday he has the pleasure to celebrate his 50th birthday in prisonship. He's still in jail in the UK. The only good thing about it is that the judges prevent that he is getting to the US. And the reasoning is they cannot guarantee that due to the psychological status of Julian Assange that he would survive the American prison or justice system. This is, I think, I can bring it to the point with this, in the argumentation. And the other coincidence this week was there was a remarkable interview which was given by a guy who was who pretended to be Julian Assange, quasi right-hand manager of WikiLeaks and stuff, and it turned out that this guy was a blatant liar, and he gave an interview with the Swedish Stunden, and Sigurd Ingi Tordarsson was recruited by US authorities to build a case against Assange after misleading them to believe he was previously a close associate of his. And big parts of the accusations against Julian Assange are based on what Sigurdur Ingi Tordarsson told there. And the calls are now getting more and more louder that Julian Assange should be leave the arrest right now because, as we've seen, one of the main witnesses turned out to be a liar, to be someone to be a grifter. He pretended to be someone which he was definitely not. He gave a longer interview in it. It was remarkable, what his status were. He has he is enjoying immunity. He is considered to have committed certain crimes. Molesting children and stuff is being said about him, and it is denied that he ever was a leading figure at WikiLeaks at all. It turned out he was just a volunteer there. I don't know in how far the US authorities made a background check on him, or for me it is kind of mysterious, that they are presenting such a weak witness who in the end went to the public, and confessed the stuff, around Julian Assange. And well, as I said, the calls are louder, to set him free. Parallel, there is now an offer coming from the US, and this is very remarkable. They're saying they would be okay if Julian Assange was taken back to Australia and under the authority of the Australian government, he could serve any time the Australian government would see to be okay for this. And what do you guys think? For me, it looks like like a certain twist, to get still hands on him. I don't know in how far the Australian government is allowed to deliver a person of their own country to America. The Australian government, to my information, is more right-winger oriented, and well, I don't know if they're trying to get Australia to give them Julian Assange. What do you guys think? What is behind this?
Whatever is behind it, it's immaterial whether he serves it in the US or in Australia. It's still
no. The big difference is any time. So the Australian government could decide after 1 week he is in Australia to release him.
Well, that's true, but the real reason why this is going on is some weeks ago, the motions were put out by Julian Assange's defense team that he can't get a fair trial or fair treatment in the United States, and that the the sentences, it's unjust. Yes. But beyond that, it's inhumane, and it doesn't, the idea being that if they could show that he would not be treated well in the United States, that he shouldn't be extradited. So the United States is coming back, and saying that with this baloney, basically, because all they're trying to do is get his butt here. Once they get his butt here, it's over. They're going to do whatever they want. So whatever agreements get made, aren't going to be honored. But it's just theater to keep the game going, and it's part of the larger back and forth of the court, which it's a kangaroo court. The government in the UK and the United States want his butt over here. Great Britain's part of the Five Eyes. Yeah, they're part of the same team. So they want his butt over here.
The UK needs America, for trade and stuff.
Great Britain, New Zealand, Australia, United States, they share intelligence services.
Yes.
Fully. It's like it's one big country as far as the intelligence services go.
Yeah.
So they're all against Julian, because he exposed their activities. He showed that what our government does is beyond the law, and it's inexcusable, and our government wants to do everything they can to ruin this man's life. And so, what this part about being sent to, a prison in Australia, that's just theater. But the other theater is what you mentioned earlier, that news report that came out about the guy who gave false testimony, and he's finished, right? I think. I scanned the story. I was familiar with it when it first came out. Caitlin Johnstone, wrote about it, and a lot of people got very upset, like, oh, this means something. And my attitude to it is, doesn't mean anything at all. Basically, he was a plant, just like the rape charges that were phony.
Yes. You're right.
The fact that he's a lying POS doesn't mean anything, because the judge has secret orders from the military in the UK, or who knows, maybe the Queen, though I doubt that. I wish she'd do anything and just step in and say, enough, send this man home. I'm the Queen, I can do this, but that would be nice, wouldn't it?
But you're absolutely right. They want his ass in America. It doesn't matter. But it throws a very shady light again, on what's going on around Julian Assange and all the smear attempts, and it is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, they won't give up. If you cross the federal government and they want you, they will.
Exactly.
There's no statute of limitations as far as they're concerned. They'll get you.
Yeah. I was thinking, that they're maybe trying to get the Australian government, to extradite him to the US. Maybe if they sense it would be easier, that there would be less criticism, than because in Europe it would be a harsh criticism of the United Kingdom, at least in the public, not of course from politician side.
Yeah, you do have a very right-wing government in Australia right now, so that's definitely a possibility. I mean, these guys are even more climate denying than the U.S.
Yeah, they're completely Trumpers. They were Trumpers, when he was in office.
And
Well,
they're suffering the biggest coral death right now
in
history. So, and they're still denying everything. So
yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, we will see what's going on, what's developing around Julian Assange. We only can hope that this is going to end soon, because if you look at him a couple of years ago, how he looked like and how he looks today, this man is absolutely broken, and this guy is finished, and they should leave him alone. And he did a great service for all of us, and with what he did, and he didn't deserve this, and I hope it finds a good end for him.
Yeah, and Julian, peace stuff. We're gonna cover the issue of the Ann Bridge and all the water. We're gonna cover that in a future show. It's definitely something we would like to look at.
Yeah. Right, guys.
Before we go into the satire portion, just guys, feel free to share if you think that others would benefit from the show, and share. So the satire.
Yes. I heard COVID vaccines cause infertility. I heard they contain microchips. I heard they can cause autism. It's important to develop herd immunity. Oh God, yes, I got the joke. Yeah, I didn't see it before. I just started to read it out. It's a good one. And by the way, I got good news for myself. On Monday I get my first shot.
Congrats!
Oh, good for you.
Yes, hallelujah. Yeah, and the Voting Rights Act, another monument being removed. But I heard yesterday there was a statue of Robert E. Lee removed somewhere. In all peace. I didn't see any demonstrations, any bullshit around it. He was just removed and gone.
Well, that's good.
Yes, the first responders and the worst responders. Yeah. Yeah, like this one. Apparently, sir, some people could understand your tax returns. And he's hiding on the couch.
Good.
Yeah, and this is, we talked about this. I cannot get this, that they allow the guys, to get away with all the money they stole and doing this bullshit in space right now, because it leads nowhere. It leads absolutely nowhere. They only can use this for their commercial bullshit, because those rockets they are producing don't lead to more science, because they are reduced. They can only make the short jump in space, and that's it.
Yeah, but the only way to get away from the forever chemicals is to go into space.
Yeah, that's right.
There's
Yeah.
no other way.
Yeah.
So you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the other tragic story around Afghanistan. The troops are gone, and what about all those people who helped them? The translators, the teachers, and stuff. I think it's in my honest opinion, I think it's a fucking shame, to leave those guys behind. And I read a report today. They say it says that after the the military has gone. The Taliban takes over city after city after city, and it's only a matter not anymore of weeks, of days until Afghanistan is back at the old status with the Taliban government, and it all was for bullshit, It might have raised hopes, for females, for children, etc., for some people who wanted to see a progress there, and now they're getting the middle finger, and they say, yeah, look how you come clear, fuck you. And it's a shame. It's a fucking shame.
Shame. I understand Biden's point that we've been there and nothing is it's not changing to the.
I understand the motivation, because going on with the war makes no sense. But the way they went out, it's a shame.
Yeah, I think it's going to be horrific. We're going to see some really horrible scenes, and I don't know if they're going to be able to keep the cities, but it's enough that they go in and start executing people and women and stuff, and it's unconscionable that we're not going to stop it.
Yeah.
Here's our new educational model of.
It's get worse on so many levels, guys. After getting their free passage to America, they immediately received jobs.
Yeah, right.
God. Yeah.
Slavery chapter.
$3.50 an hour. Yeah.
That's the slavery chapter.
And it is crazy, when I heard the argumentation, that the topic around slavery should be presented the way that any white kid would not feel uneasy. Isn't this fucking crazy?
Right.
Damn.
Poor souls. Tender years.
Yeah, and this is another one. Yeah. You can also, if you go back, you can also instead of a snowplow, you can also put a guy with a vaccination car in front of it, because it's the same. It's absolutely the same thing,
There's Putin. I can't be held responsible for these actions, and software hackers. Obviously, I mean, if they really wanted to, they'd crack down on them like nothing. It's totalitarian state. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's just the journalists that are getting. And here's the U.S. Complaining that it's being.
Well, I just know when I'm hacked, it's not the Russians that do it. So I have a dissenting opinion about this. I think they're the biggest hacker on the planet.
I'm asking myself in this, if the Russians are doing the hackings and stuff, and America is complaining, I'm asking myself, does America not have also experts, who are operating in Russia?
Well, maybe 10 to 1 more than they are against us. Come on.
I don't know. I'm asking.
We have billions of dollars in our defense budget that's earmarked for this kind of stuff. We're going to pretend we don't do it. We're going to point our fingers at everybody else to say how bad they are. When we destabilize the world, the Central America is having horrendous issues. They have climate change going on. They're being ruled by gangs. Who destabilized their governments? Who made their coups happen? The United States did to facilitate business interests.
Point well taken. But I think there's a difference. The difference is that we're not touching certain areas, which is what Biden was trying to circle in his meeting with Putin, and the Russians don't have any qualms of doing that. So that's.
Well, I'm not saying they have qualms. I wouldn't give them that, but I think this is it's used to make it's an excuse.
Right.
And the fact is, are you really worried about Russians influencing our elections? I mean, we have our populace is perfectly capable of behaving like idiots all by ourselves. So, you know, I don't believe that there is that much, even if they are hacking, that they're really not influencing anything. They're not, you know, one Coca-Cola commercial probably influences people a lot more than 10 years of Russian hacks. That's my opinion. I think it's much ado about nothing.
Yeah. Okay. And here's
because if you want to talk about propaganda, this is propaganda right here.
Fox weather.
Well, I only was wondering because I never heard Putin complaining, you know, about being hacked.
Yeah. And we haven't really touched the big elephant in the room, which is Haiti. But I think at this point, not even they know what's going on.
Yes, we should wait at least 1 week to see what's, because what I read today is there is so much uncertainty. There is no one who can be due to the Constitution be in charge at the moment. Everything is the high court judge, you know, who was in charge, died of COVID a couple of days ago. You know, there's so many question marks. You know, but nobody sees through it at the moment.
It's a shit show.
I have an observation.
It's a shit show. Of course, it's a shit show. You know.
Yeah, but you know, one thing about this is that it's very revealing, because the truth is, you, I, and most everybody else never heard of this guy. Didn't even know that Haiti had a president, though we probably could have got it right on a multiple choice test, you know. So nobody knows anything about this guy, and he's assassinated. So what I find interesting was what people say about him, because the first thing out of everybody's mouth betrays their bias and tells me where they are coming from. Now, personally, when I heard the news, I said, I don't know anything about this guy. And I spent several minutes Googling him, looking him up, finding out what I could about him, coming to the conclusion, by the way, that he's probably a pretty decent guy. He, you know, he started a auto parts company in Haiti that was successful. He tried to get a banana exporting business going to Germany. And it gave him, it never really got off the ground. There were only like 2 containers full of bananas that were ever shipped, but it gave him the nickname of Banana Man.
Yeah, he dabbled in many things.
Yeah, but anyway, so people have been, you know, commenting on him, and like, you know, like I'm actually an admin on a blog, and somebody, or a forum, and somebody typed in about him that, oh, he's connected with drug lords, and, you know, it was the FARC that killed him. And like, you know, where are people getting this? You know, there's whatever their bias is, they're just pulling it up. And it's really amazing, because it just really reveals where people are coming from.
But you have to mention that he's moved to extend his reign by changing the Constitution, which kind of brings to question his point.
Well, that's a very interesting thing too. By the way, the U.S. government was approving of that action by him. His contention was that his term of office, well, his contention was, since he's dead, that his term of office began when he actually he was delayed entering the office. And so he's saying that his time should have been longer because of that, where of course, if you're the enemy, you're going to say, oh no, that's violating the Constitution. You know, you were elected on this date. Just because you couldn't start for a year doesn't mean that, you know, you only get like a 4-year instead of the 5-year then, you know, because apparently it's 5 years in Haiti. So, you know, that part of the story can be spun both ways, and it is being spun both ways.
This is what I said. There are too many question marks. I was also wondering why the UN and other states directly partied up with some of these persons who are trying, you know, to get the highest office. You know, there are currently 3 in the race, as I know. You know.
There might be other things behind the scenes that we're not aware of, but
Exactly.
But the thing is that they, I mean, right after this, they killed the security forces. Killed a bunch of people that they claimed were involved in the planning and in the execution of the president, and they hinted that some of them are of American citizenship, and that brings to question whether the U.S. was somehow involved in it or whether that's what they want you to think.
Exactly.
We don't know. It's a shit show. And I joked with my Haitian friend who said that the Haiti is kind of like a plane in the air where the mechanic is fixing the plane as it's flying. And I said, well, but he went on a coffee break. He has to have his coffee break. So this is kind of how Haitian history goes, unfortunately. A whole line of dictators, and we've never, like, it's supposedly a democracy. It's not. And
poverty and tragedy.
It's very sad because I mean, as long as this is the case, this country cannot be successful, and it's holding its population back.
And by the way, you know, I usually don't make advertisement for Netflix and stuff, but they have now a very nice documentary there, a very funny documentary. It is How to Become a Tyrant. You know, and it shows the playbook, how it's done correctly. It is very funny, very entertaining, a little bit over the top, but it's worth watching, you know, for those who don't know what to do today, then do it.
Next time we'll have a trailer.
All right, guys, we did it. You know, we made the show. You know, it didn't look like that, you know, shortly before we wanted to start, but we got it, and without any interruptions. Very good. Guys, thank you very much. It was a very nice show. It was, you know, for me, you know, what's deep in my mind now is what you talk about, the tennis ball. You know, that one tennis ball is more harmful than 4 years of a vehicle.
5, the article.
Oh, wow! Yeah. This is
sulfur hexafluoride.
Sulfur hexafluoride. Oh, damn.
I think it's also used for electrical insulation in some because it's non-conductive. So
yeah.
It can be,
okay.
You know.
Yeah, but this was. This really blew my mind today. You know, this was only a little piece, but this really blew my mind. You know.
Yeah.
And, I hope you.
Going on.
And I know our show is depressing when we bring up all this information, but I think it's so important that you guys spread the word because we need action, and right now, and we can't afford to let these corporations and wealthy people just mess things up even further. We gotta get our S together.
Yeah. Well, thank you to all in chat who commented, and thank you very much for watching, and I hope you were entertained. Well, we are going out now. I discovered a very interesting guy, the No Boy, you know, and he has a very interesting history. You are smiling, Amos. You know him?
No, I'm first time.
Okay. He has Vietnam roots. He's American with Vietnam roots, and it turns out that his grandparents were held in internal camps, you know, during the 40s, you know, when America was at war with Germany and Japan. You know, the Japanese people in America were internated, you know, and it happened to be that his grandfather, his grandmother were part of a band, you know, and they were allowed, you know, to tour with the band within certain boundaries, you know. I think it was West Wyoming. He made a song about it, a different song than we are playing today. And it seems that this band became a very successful band. You know, they were called the best band in West Wyoming or something like this. But you know, after the gigs, they have to return into their camps. You know, and he's talking a lot of the situation his grandparents were at that time. You know, and very interesting guy. I recommend you guys to look more for his stuff. He does excellent stuff, and well, I hope you like it. He's here now with the Imperial Twist. And guys, thank you for being with me, and see you next week. Have a good one.
Okay.
And be safe and cool.
You too, Markus.
Bye, guys.
I was pro-communist and extremely pro-American because I really love rock and roll. Rock and roll. Nobody forced us that you should listen to that. We came naturally. We like the music, we want to reproduce it.
Can you give the world a twist? Just by doing the twist. At the moment the bomb went off, they were playing Purple Haze. I met Robert at his restaurant, c'était un arrondissement. The door still echo when we jump. He said your mother brought back 45s from Paris in 65, and we lent him note for note. Some broken English Rolling Stones, Fenders, girls and dogs. America provides.